So good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on intelligent automation, which will be facilitated by colleagues in Deloitte. My name is Jade O'Toole, and I am the Emerging Technology Manager here in the Department of Public Expenditure, National Development Plan Delivery and Reform. To provide some context to today's session, in 2019, the department and the OGP established an RPA framework which enables all departments and public bodies to easily access and use automation tools to optimise business processes and create efficiencies. Deloitte have worked on this framework since 2019 and in 2023 won the tender again to deliver robotic process automation services across the public and civil service. The framework is direct drawdown, which makes it easier and quicker for public bodies to avail of and access automation services, as there is no need for public bodies to directly procure these services themselves. So the framework now also includes some intelligent automation services, which is what Deloitte will showcase today. It's also important to note that the framework agreement does include some AI services which are categorised at or below the level of limited risk as per the proposed EU regulations. In addition, as part of the framework, the Deloitte team will be running 2 waves of training for intelligent automation. So there's going to be a business analyst training course and a developer training course that will be kicking off hopefully the end of February, start of March. The dates are to be confirmed. There are some criteria for participants to meet if you want to take part in the training. So ideally, you would be from an organisation who has started on an automation journey or are due to embark on one soon. You should have strong interest in pursuing a role in intelligent automation. You're either working in an IT related role or a process specialist role, project management, transformation, any of those roles, and there is a likelihood of you working in this space in the future. So you'll be able to get a beginner level qualification as a business analyst in 4 days of training. And if you're looking to do the developer program, that'll take 8 days of training to get a qualification. Further communication on that will issue shortly. So our email address in the department is rpa@per.gov.ie, and I'll drop it into the chat so you have it as well. So if you want more information on the training, or you want to be added to the AI and Emerging Technology Network, just send us an email. You'll then receive communication on any kind of upcoming trainings that we are running, or just in general, if you want to ask any questions on RPA, or if you have any questions after today's session, that is the email address to go to. So I'm going to hand you over now to Kevin Young in Deloitte, who is going to introduce his colleagues and take it away. So over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Jade. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation. The items we're going to cover today are myself and Emily are going to just introduce the framework a little bit, and then Emmanuel is going to talk about process mining, which is one of the new tools that's available under the framework in the intelligent automation space. And then further to that, Stephen is going to talk a bit about document understanding, another of the new tools in the space of intelligent automation. Following that, we'll have some Q&A, and we have some time to do that. So as we go along, you can submit your questions, and we'll answer them at the end. So as Jay has mentioned, Deloitte have been working with the public sector, building solutions for automation since 2018. In that time, we've built over 90 processes for 15 organizations within the public service. The HSE being the biggest, followed by NSSO, Department of Social Protection. We've also worked with education, transport, Office of Public Works, Public Jobs, Revenue, WRC, and a few others. In that time, the framework's been a great success in terms of the amount of work the robots have done. So there's been a number of developments, there's been a number of benefits delivered in terms of the bots have worked at this stage nearly 820,000 hours for the various public sector bodies. The robots have processed over 8 million transactions. We've also run a number of events over the last couple of years for civil and public servants, and we've had nearly 3,000 people attended those events. And as Jade mentioned, we've done about 400 plus hours training on the framework, and we are planning to do some more with you very soon in February, March. So looking forward to meeting people who are more interested in the framework at that point. So handing over to Emily now.
Morning, folks. My name is Emily Fenneran, and like Kevin, I am one of the key account managers on the framework. And I suppose basically what I just wanted to just give you sort of a brief overview of what actually intelligent automation is. So it's like a combination of tools and capabilities with different technologies, which will then allow the automation of both tasks and processes. So in the previous framework, we probably would have mostly looked at robotic process automation. And just to give you a brief description of what that actually is. So that is computer coded software that mimics the actions of humans. It's not intelligent. So therefore you need to be able to actually code then the different paths down the process and actually look at those.
I think we've lost Emily. Okay, I'll continue on. So yeah, so some of the tools that
systems, etc. Sorry, have we lost connection?
Emily, you're back, I think, are you? You were cut out there for a minute.
Oh, sorry, folks. What I'll do is I'll just sort of go back. So just on low code solutions, what we're seeing is that the providers are actually giving us sort of drag and drop. So what they're doing is pre-building connectors, components, etc., that you can then drop into your coding for actually automation of processes. So it just makes it easier and faster to build. Then when we step into intelligent automation, so natural language processing. So this is where actually you can now get a bot to actually understand human language, whether it be spoken or written. So it'll understand the broad meaning and then be able to actually answer back in that sort of based on the input that is received. Then I suppose the two capabilities that we plan to deep dive into today, one being intelligent OCR or document understanding. And that actually is, I suppose, the scanning of documents, whether it be handwritten or non-standardized documents, to actually digitize those. So take that data and actually digitize it in one way. So Stephen will actually cover that and show you a use case on that. And then the second one then is process mining. So this is a tool then that allows you to kind of discover and analyze and monitor your processes. And based on the data that actually comes out from that, being able to make decisions in and around that. And Emanuela is now going to cover that. So I'll actually just hand over to Emanuela to go into that in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name is Emanuele Canuti, and I'm a senior consultant in the finance and performance team. So today I'm going to present you, as Emily said, process mining. I hope you can see my screen. So here we have how, like, a sort of happy path on how an invoicing process should be executed. So you can see that there are 5 main steps that are receive invoice, process invoice, final check of invoice, approve invoice, and pay invoice. And those are the main steps of an invoicing process, and I would say that are similar to every single company that has an invoicing process. And it might be because like each company has a sort of procedure to follow, but the reality is much different. So this is like click and play here. You can see how the invoices, so those blue dots are invoices, are flowing from the receive invoice to the pay invoice step. But the reality is much different. So if we start adding some level of details, you can see that here is how the process starts to look like. So you will see that there are many different path variants that can be taken. But before going more into the details of this analysis, if we can go back to the presentation, I'm going to give you a better understanding of what's process mining. Here is the slides. Thank you. Thank you. So process mining is a technology that allows an automated process discovery approach. It is data-driven, therefore it uses data available within your system to identify any possible inefficiency that is affecting your process. It might be a loop, a variance, a repetition, a bottleneck. Whatever is the inefficiency that is affecting your process mining is able to detect it. But it doesn't just identify which are those inefficiencies. It also provides you with metrics. So it provides you with metrics on how much those inefficiencies are actually affecting your business and your process. So this technology is really useful for businesses that either have a lack of transparency, so they don't know, for example, how exactly their processes are executed because those processes are too big, too scattered throughout different teams or throughout different geographical regions. Or it could be really useful for businesses that know which are their problems, but they don't know how to quantify those problems. So they don't know how those problems are actually affecting the performances of their processes. So the business value deriving from process mining is, first of all, a significantly reduction in the discovery cost, because the cost of identifying opportunities would be much cheaper. It's going to be much quicker to evaluate how much those opportunities are worth. The second is support better investment decisions, because once you know how much those problems are affecting your performances, you will be able to prioritize which one is the best and which one is the first to be addressed and which one next. The third value from this technology is the enhance of the confidence in the benefits identified, and that's because this is a technology that is fact-based. Using data as opposed to the traditional analysis method that sees interviews of SMEs, process mining is not subjected to any personal bias. The fourth business value is the increase on the process transparency, because it gives you a clear understanding of how actually the process is executed. And the last one is the expedition of the benefits realization. And that's because the time that it passes from the identification of those benefits to the actual implementation of solutions will be much cheaper, much quicker. Now, moving to the next slide, here is how process mining works. So as I said at the beginning, process mining works leveraging the data available within your ERP system. It doesn't matter which is the ERP system. It could be Salesforce, it could be SAP, Oracle, or even other different type of ERP system. Every time that a user execute an action within one of those ERP systems, it leaves a trace. And this is a digital trace that is called digital footprint. This digital footprint is composed of three key elements that are a case ID, so a unique identifier, an activity, so what happened, and a timestamp, when did it happen. Combining those three things together, you get an event. And linking every single event of a single case ID gives you a map of how the process is executed. And then multiplying it for many different ID gives you a clear understanding of how the process is actually executed. The process mining is the starting point. So the starting point for process mining is, first of all, understanding what's the process that we are talking about. So in our case that I'm going to show you also later is the invoicing process. So the invoicing process is usually composed of 5 main steps that are the 5 steps that I showed you before. Then there is the input file. So how do you get like the information? Here there are two different ways to extract data to then leverage to run an analysis. The first one is a one-time connection. So you extract a CSV file, for example, from one of your ERP system or from whatever system you're using, as long as it follows some structure and some rules. So you use this CSV file to upload into your process mining solution, or the real-time connection. And the real-time connection leverages the APIs to connect to your ERP system and have a constant flow of information flowing from the ERP system to the process mining solution. And the output, so the third step, is transparency. So you get a clear understanding of how the process is executed. So going to the next slide, process mining is the starting point for many different tail projects that might start after the initial discovering and assessment done with process mining. And those are process simplification, process control, process automation, organizational redesign, digital transformation, and simulation and forecast. For the simulation and forecast, though, it's only available with the real-time connection. So using basically historical data to feed a machine learning solution and then do predictive analytics. So forecast what's going to happen in the future based on the data of the past. Now, I'm going to share again the analysis that I was showing you before. This analysis is done and available on YPath Academy. Is part of a course on how on business analysts to become like a business analyst for process mining, and it's an analysis done on an invoicing process of a company that was underperforming. This company gave 12 months of worth of data, so the invoices that it worked over the 12 months period, and overall there were more than 20,000 different invoices worked. So as I showed you before, this is how the process looks like. So pressing play, you will see those blue dots that are invoices that are flowing from the first step, receive invoice, through process invoice, final check invoice, and so on. And this is like the easiest way of seeing how the process is executed. But if we start adding layer of complexity, we'll see that the process starts to look like differently. So here is how the process actually looks like. And we can start seeing some, let's say, inefficiencies that are affecting the business. So we'll see here, for example, this arrow here where you see 2067, it means that the final check of invoice step is repeated 2067 times. So 2067 invoices have to repeat the same step before moving to the approved invoice. And this has obviously impacts on the performances of a process, because it takes time, it takes efforts, it takes people to run this activity. Or if we look at here between check contract conditions and final check of invoice, you will see that there are 5,000 roughly and 500 invoices going to final check of invoice and 523 coming back to check contract conditions. So there is a repetition because some invoices have to go back and repeat the same step. But as I said before, process mining is not only showing you how the process is executed, but it gives you metrics. So we can even change the metric and start looking at different type of metrics. So for example, the average time. So we can see how the average time, like what's the average time to perform each activity. So the loop that we were seeing before, the one with 2067 invoice, so the repetition of the final check of invoice, takes on average 6 days to be executed. So it means that those 2,000 and more invoices takes 6 days on average to move to the following action, that is approve invoice. Or here, between check contract conditions and final check of invoice, you would see that it takes 3 days to go from the check contract conditions to final check of invoice, and then 2.3 days to go back. And as we saw before, there were invoices that got stuck in a sort of loop, so they have to repeat the same 2 actions a couple of times. So it means that for those invoices, the times, the throughput time, the average throughput times will be 5.3 days higher than the rest. Talking about invoices, we can even see, for example, the case amount. So here we have how much every single path is worth in terms of invoices. So combination sum of the value of every single invoice. But I think that the most interesting is the number of cases, also probably the easiest way to understand. So if we start adding layer of details, so we get to 70, let's go to the highest, to the top. So here is how the process looks like. And pressing play, you will see how many different paths and ways of executing the same process are, as opposed to the initial one that was an happy path. So you will see that there are many different lines. Each line is a variance. There are going to be variants that are executed only for one single action, others that will be executed for more than one single case AD, but still there is a lot of differentiation. And this is not even the most complex way to see the process. So if I add all the loop depth here, you're going to see what is called and named a spaghetti diagram. And this is a spaghetti diagram because you will see that it's really complicated. Probably it's difficult to see, I know, but this is all those different lines that you see here are all different variants and ways of executing the same process. So this is, to me, the power of process mining, in the sense that this level of detail, this level of information and insight won't be possible to get with normal interviews with SMEs. So it has a lot of potential, and so many information can be found out from there. With that, I'm going to hand over to Stephen for the document understanding part. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Emmanuel. So, hi guys, my name is Stephen Connolly. I'm a solutions manager here in Deloitte, working with RPA and Intelligent Automation. So, I'm going to talk today about document processing. So, first and foremost, I want to give you a few ideas of different processes that use documents, and there could be underlying processes associated with them. I will go into a few more examples, and I'm going to give you a demo as well at the end. So, firstly, look, there's a few different document types here that you might already use. So, for example, receipts, remittances, invoices, they all have underlying processes associated with them. So, for example, passports have identity and verification. So, you might receive a passport, extract the image from it, and put it into a system, perform verifications with it. And likewise, you might have an invoice that comes in from a supplier that you have to take the data out and put it somewhere effectively. So, just moving on to my next slide, I'm just going to give you a teaser about the document I'm going to go through in my demo. So I've picked a real tester for this one. This is a census document from 1911 using handwriting, excuse me, and it's cursive handwriting, old style. It won't get much harder than this, I'd imagine. So I will be going through this in detail, so you'll see that at the end. So I'll just on to the next slide there, please. So what is manual document processing? So a lot on this slide, I know, but just taking from left to right. How do we receive a document? Is it through email? Is it through Dropbox? Is it through SFTP, being a folder drive? Web portal, it could be a scanner, it could be a multitude of different things. And these documents then come in different formats, such as PDF, JPG, TIFF, ZIP, you name it. Can come in image, can come in different things. And there's a lot of different data points on these images. So on the right-hand side, I'll just give you a few examples of the data you're extracting from it. Be it a reference number, a date, a client number, totals, addresses. There's an infinite limit of data that's being extracted. So what happens manually? A person looks at the document and extracts those pieces of data and then moves them to a system. It performs some sort of verification and enters it some, a Workday or SAP, Oracle, etc. There's loads of different systems that it enters into. So just a few questions about the documents that help automate it effectively. So what is the business process? So where does that data go? What validations happen with it as it comes in from a client or supplier, whoever it may be? How many documents and how do they look like? So what are the documents that you're receiving? What do they look like? Where's the data points? All that good stuff. How much time? So AHT means average handling time. How long does it take to process a document and costs does it take? So how much time does it take to process each of the documents? And then what about human errors that may result in reworking and losses? So for example, if you're extracting an IBAN from an invoice or a date of birth from a passport, if someone misenters these into a system, what is the underlying impact and what is the quality and risk management improvement that automating that process can improve? So just moving on to my next slide. I'm just going to talk about document understanding briefly. So document understanding is the ability to extract and interpret information and meaning from a wide range of documents. So I just want to encapsulate what document understanding is. Well, it's document processing, artificial intelligence, and robotic process automation. So it's a combination of all three. Your document processing is receiving your documents, your AI is translating that document into extracted data, and then your robotic process automation is kind of gelling everything together in a way that can enter into a system and perform your validations. So just a quick brief slide on that. Just the next slide. So I'm just going to bring you through a quick use case in using document processing in automation. So just going to go through the before and after, and then I'm going to quickly go through the benefits. So this is when someone receives a sick leave certificate from a doctor. First things first is they receive the document. So once they receive it, they have to read the sick leave certificate, extract all the data from it, and make sure that it's all provided. They need to open up the SAP for HR data, search for the employee and find them, and click all those clicks that a robot could do. Then they have to enter the codes for sick leave type and subtype, or they need to update the absence that's already existing in the system, save certificate in the team folder, and the task is done. So that takes 7 minutes on average for a person to do. But with automation, the step or the process can be reduced down to 3 steps. So the bot receives the file and processes all the data that's within that sick leave cert. It can flag any exceptions to a person. So if something's missing, if the start date and end date aren't provided, if the start date and end date aren't matching what the employee is saying, it can flag that for human reviewing and handling that separately. If that's all correct as expected, the bot can enter that into SAP and sends an execution report of the files that's processed to a manager, to the user, all that good stuff. So just to reflect on how the improvement has been with that is 85% in time savings owing to the process being automated and 50% straight through processing. So 50% of items are not touched by personnel because the data has been provided and it matches what's expected. So just a little flavor of what that can, how that can improve processes. So just a quick slide on how it'll work. So moving from left to right, receive, understand, and act. Firstly, the bot will receive a document that can come in a variety of types. So structured, where the document type is always the same. Data can differ, but it's always in the same structured format. Semi-structured, it is close to the same format as all the time, but it can change slightly. It can move on to a new page if there's additional line items, things like that. And then unstructured, so anything, a document where it can effectively be anywhere, something like a sick leave cert where start date and end date could be somewhere different per doctor. And then just to touch on some of the document variety, so what the document automation system can extract. So multiple languages, various formats, different templates, handwriting, signatures, skewed docs, checkboxes, low quality scans. So there's just a good range that covers a lot more than just the typical documents that you'd receive. And then in terms of understand, so I won't go into too much detail here, but this is how the bot will understand what it's extracting. So digitize, it puts into a format it can read and OCRs on it, performs OCR on it. Then it classifies the document, figures out which document it's looking at. Extract, so based on the document that it's figured out that it's looking at, it extracts the designated data points from that. Validate, so confirming that the data is correct. So it has a confidence score that it wants to make sure that everything over 99% we're going to pass through as normal. Retrain, so this is a step after documents are processed, further learning into the machine learning to improve the output of the bot. And then analyze, so reflecting on the data that's been extracted and the processes that are subsequent to that. So finally, act. This is just taking that data, forming your validations, entering into your Workday, SAP, whatever it might be, just the usual RPA processes at the end of that. And just going to touch on some of the benefits that you might get out of from document processing, automating document processing, excuse me. So accelerated productivity. So you're removing some steps from processes that are given to the bot effectively. So the productivity rates will increase. Higher efficiency, so save time and costs on paperwork, with straightforward automations that help improve efficiency. Better customer experience. So what I like about this is you could have a bot scanning a mailbox waiting for files to be received from a customer outside of business hours, process that document and have a response to a customer before opening up the next business day. And then finally, happier employees. So rather than employee having to process every single document manually, they can focus on the exception cases where there's something missing or there's something needed where a human is required. So with that, then I am just going to share my screen. And hopefully you can see this nicely. So this is, as promised, this is my demo on document understanding. I understand that there's a lot of things on screen, but I will go through them fairly quickly, or well, in detail. So first and foremost, on the right-hand side here, we have regular fields. So these are the fields that are typically extracted from a document. On top here, we have the table data. So most documents like invoices and all that will have table data that you'll be extracting. And here on our center, we have our census form from 1911. So I purposely picked a very tricky one to extract because we have cursive handwriting in old style, and we have many different data points for to be extracted basically. So I'm going to extract some of the regular fields first, and then I'll go through the table data. You can see there's like a letter next to it. That's just a corresponding key to quick select a data point. So if I click on my form number, which is just up here, and I click F, good. Document Understanding has interpreted this as a 2 and is therefore going to extract this as a 2. If we go down to the enumerator name, which is just down here, we're going to select that and click E. So it is extracted E Bradley Fanst, which is 100% correct, which is really good. Wish I could stop it here, but let's see the next one, which is head of family name. And if I select H, close enough, but not quite the exactly right. But just to bear in mind, this is a machine learning model with very little training data provided. You can see that here because we have a poor data health quality. And what is really good about this is when it loads up, it will tell me how much documents I need to train it with to improve the quality. So just to flag that, and usually, you know, we'd have 50 minimum documents just to train it up with good quality data. However, I've left a testing field here just to show what the capability is like when it comes to you know, computer generated text. So if I just click this S, it's going to extract that perfectly. So I'm just going to delete that and just show you what level it can extract the computer generated text. So I'm just going to select this line. Oh, excuse me. And this extracts it word for word. Even the uppercase, it figures out that that's uppercase and it puts it to that. So just to showcase the ability there. And finally, I'm going to just extract the data from the table here. I've already pre-configured my hotkeys to certain numbers, so I can do this quickly. So if I select the Christian name, the surname, the relation head of family, religion, their education, their age, which is 6, their age again, profession, whether they're married, and I'll just select the where born as well, because that is the last one in the field. So I just wanted to show you what it looks like when if you extracted it. It collects it all into a table. Now, obviously, as I said, we need to give it a bit of training before it gets to higher levels of percentages in terms of what it's extracting, but it's clearly extracted it in a clean way. And one thing I'd like to flag is the numbers that it extracts are almost, you know, 95, 100% accurate, while it can also train for different fields. So just to show you, it does extract some complex text that's provided to it. So with that, I will stop sharing and I will hand it back to Kevin just so we can go through Q&A. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Emanuela. I suppose there's some questions that have come in. So Emanuela, I might start with you, if that's okay, for process mining. So one of the questions is, will process mining work if you don't have an ERP system?
Yeah, so process mining can be used, can be like, we can leverage, like, for example, data that you are available within Excel, for example. It obviously, like, it's not, like, it depends on how many data you have. So the value of process mining is when it comes to analyze a big amount of data. So as I showed you, the example that I showed you before, there were more than 20,000 invoices and more than 115,000 events, unique events that happened. So using process mining to analyze a small amount of data in Excel is possible, but it's not convenient from, like, an economical perspective. But yes, it is possible.
So I suppose it's a case of getting the data where it's flowing as much of the process through as possible, so you can see those anomalies and all those kind of different flows that you showed on the system.
Yes, exactly. Like the more data you have, and the more it is suitable and profitable to you to use process mining to identify every possible variance and every inefficiencies that is affecting your process. Well, with a small batch of information, it's not as worth.
Okay. And just another one then, are there any open source versions if people wanted to actually go and have a look at the tech and play around with it?
Yes, so what I showed you before is a sort of mock analysis that is available within the WebPath Academy webpage. It's part of a course that is the Business Analyst Fundamental as Process Mining. And you can play around with it, so everyone can access it as long as you have access to WebPath Academy, so as long as you register there. If you're interested, we can share the link for that course later.
Okay, cool. Thanks very much. And then Stephen, there's a couple of questions in for you. So sorry, one of the first ones is, are there additional licensing costs when using document understanding?
Yeah, so there's bundles called AI units that are used to that effectively are consumed when you use the licensing for document understanding. You know, we look at the number of documents that you're processing on a regular basis before selecting which license you choose in that sense. But yeah, there's an additional cost for that, but it varies. So you can get a bigger package for if you have more documents process.
And the actual document understanding itself, can that actually be deployed on an on-prem solution, or is it only just cloud?
So UiPath have already confirmed they can do an automation suite separate, like an on-premise version. So it can be on-premise. However, it will require a good bit of computing power to perform all the machine learning algorithms and all that. So it would require a bit of solid infrastructure up front.
Okay. And then just one of the last ones, because there's been quite a few actually that have come through in the last couple of minutes. So, but one of the last ones then is I suppose for the handwriting and scanned documents, how accurate is it and how can it learn and be trained to read that data?
So just to be clear, the document I've used here a second ago is a scan. I think it's a PDF, or sorry, maybe not a PDF, but a TIFF. So it's an image that it's picking up. So I must say, when it's computer generated text, its accuracy is incredibly high, like it's 95, 100%. But when it goes to handwriting, which is quite experimental, especially with the handwritten stuff I've been looking at, it's still 50, 60, 70, 80% accurate. So it is quite solid, and it does learn to extract the text from various different sources. And there's also a Gen AI kind of learning model that it has. I didn't want to go into that because I didn't want to confuse people, but it can predict where certain fields are if it's been given enough training data.
And I suppose, like any of this technology, it's evolving and it's getting better as we sort of move along.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm not going to ask any more questions. I know they're all flooding in, but I suppose, Jade, what we'll probably try and do is address some of these questions afterwards, and ping some of those out probably with the slide deck, if that's okay. I'm just watching time here.
Yeah, that's no problem. There's enough time, I'd say probably about 5 minutes if you want to answer a couple more, and then we can answer
Jade,
the rest then.
Jade, sorry, I think the main thing to note is if you want to discuss your particular process or have questions, that we are available to do a call, and the first workshop for everybody is free as part of the framework. So, we can speak with you for 30 minutes or an hour, look at your process, see if we think it's suitable for automation. We'll also look at the business case to see if you're going to have value for money. We can give you some indication on the costs and how long the process would take. So yeah, happy to schedule, a follow-up meeting with anybody. My email and some of the team's emails will be on the deck we send out, Jade. So if anybody wants to get in touch, absolutely do.
Yeah, and we've actually had a couple of people in the chat, but also in our own RPA inbox getting in touch already. So yeah, they're going to be busy, I think, over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's what we like.
Yeah. Are there any more questions to answer, or are you happy to answer them via the email we send out next week? So I see a couple more there in the chat, but we can send a written answer if that suits you.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing specifically, I would just say that the thing is, we can process almost everything that exists within a business context, right? So that could be emails, Excels, PDFs, SAP, Microsoft CRM, Oracle, you name it, XML, JSON, pretty much you name it, we can do it. I think the main thing is when you're talking about what Stephen's talking about there, which is handwriting processing, while the document itself is structured, it's, traditionally it's been difficult for machine learning to figure out what's being written on the page. However, that technology has come on an awful lot in the last sort of 5 years, and we're at a point now where we're seeing really good examples of handwriting recognition working very well. So, I mean, that document that Stephen put up there, I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't have done a live demo on that particular document because it's actually so sort of blurry but like you can see from the results there that it is pretty good. So listen, happy to follow up with anybody on their particular process, but I wouldn't be too worried about what type of documents. I think the key thing we look at is what is the process flow, what is your particular issue. So it could be you've got seasonal spikes in demand, you've got staff shortages, you've got backlogs that you're just not being able to shift, or the backlogs are getting bigger. You've got something coming down the line where a new piece of legislation is going to flood you with data requests, etc. So you're getting ahead of something like that. So I think what we look at first off with you is your business process, what your issue is, and then we will go away and talk about ourselves and say, right, how could we solve this using the technology available? There's a number of vendors under the framework. They have different strengths and weaknesses, and within those multiple vendors, there's a number of tools that we can use to build a solution for your problem. So I think that's the way to look at it is, what is the business problem? And is there tools there to solve it?
Sorry, I was still on mute there. Okay, so thanks for that, Kevin. Will we wrap up now? I've taken a note of a couple of other questions that we will get back to when we circulate the recording next week. And like Kevin mentioned, we will circulate the slides as well. So I've sent another little message into the chat just to remind everybody of our email address, which is rpa@per.gov.ie. So if you want to be added to the network to find out more information on RPA or kind of some learning programs that are taking place, do send us an email and I'll add you onto the network. But thanks a lot for the session. Really informative and I think inspiring to a lot of people. Like I said, I can see some potential projects coming through in the chat and then also through the email. So yeah, really good session. Thanks a lot for that, Kevin and team.
Thanks, everyone, for giving us 45 minutes.
Thanks, guys.
Talk soon.
Thanks a million, folks.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.